It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine. Welcome to the live stream. It's Thursday night, and that means one thing. It's time for our Cassian Andor review show. Another episode of Cassian Andor was released yesterday on Disney+. And joining me this week to discuss it from Fantatrax.com, Mr. Andrew Walker. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, everyone. Good to be here.
How is things with you?
Good. I'm still trying to decide whether I'm an Andor fan or not, but working my way through it all.
Yeah. So, before we discuss this episode, what's been your thoughts so far on the first 7 episodes that have been out?
I really can't decide if I like it or not. It's a slow burn program. It wasn't straight like The Mandalorian. You got into it, and it was straight away. There was action and chases and fighting and blah blah blah. This one is a lot slower. There's a lot of getting pieces in place for something big coming later. So like the first few episodes all build up towards the heist and robbing the Imperial base and all that. And I'm liking it. I'm not loving it, I think would be the best way to put it.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit Marmite, I think, for some people. I think some people are just absolutely loving it. Some not connecting with it at all, don't see it as their kind of Star Wars. And then there's people, I guess, like me, get a little bit frustrated at the pacing at times, and some elements overly slow, overly complicated, and unnecessary.
Yeah. But it's been a bit. I mean, because you got The Mandalorian, everybody loved it. Then you got Book of Boba Fett, everybody kind of went, eh. And you Obi-Wan, and most people at least seem to love that. And now it feels like it's a bit of a meh again. It's not. I didn't enjoy Book of Boba Fett at all. I thought that they just it was rubbish. It's not that bad, but it's just not as engaging and gripping as I thought Rogue One was, which is what I was really hoping this was going to be. Considering like who the main character is it's obviously building towards that. It's the prequel to the prequel.
Yeah. So let's jump in. I've got some screen grabs from the shows we can take a look of as we discuss it. So this week what's happened to my screen? Let's come back out of there. I've lost my camera. Let's see if I can recover it.
This is Ferrex at night.
It's terrible. What's happened? Right, let's come back to the main screen whilst I try and figure out what's going on technology-wise. We've lost my connection to the screen grabs. So this week in Andor, we kind of kicked off with Cyril, who's kind of been the slowest of slow burns of characters. What's been your thoughts on Cyril? He's been a hard character to connect to because he's kind of been very almost like a sad, lonely kind of character.
Yeah, and then he gets fired from his job and has to go back and live with his mum, who lives across the road from Harry Potter, and it just he hasn't. I haven't connected with him at all. I've got some notes that I've been writing whenever I was watching it the other day there, and like for him, I've just written former corporate security guy. What's his name?
Yeah.
I literally didn't even know what he was called. I've got nothing to do with him, and I honestly thought that he. I thought he was going to be a bit of a like what happened in Game of Thrones quite a lot, that you would get a character who comes in, you think, oh, here's going to be one of the central people. Oh no, he's out. And that he was going to be gone pretty quickly after he got fired from his job, basically. And then he was, say, back at home living with his mum, and then he was suddenly, he's working in an office basically, and then he's being interrogated by the ISB. So maybe this is his way in to sort of dig himself out of his hole, sort of thing. But he just doesn't seem to go anywhere.
No. And we kind of kicked off this kind of episode with him sitting in his Imperial Standards Department kind of little booth, and Flob, his boss, Flob, what a great name, and two ISB agents sort of come along, and he kind of gets pulled out from that job that he's doing, brought into like a little interrogation booth, because he's been making requests to find out more about this Cassian Andor character.
Yeah.
It's kind of been a long and convoluted story for him to get to this point where he kind of felt that he was always going to hook up at some point with the ISB, and he's kind of taken the long way around to get there. I kind of like the fact that they made him quite obsessed in order to get the information on Cassian, and that's how the ISB kind of connected with him.
Mm. Yeah, I like that they've given him this job where he's got all sort of information available to him that he might not have had if he hadn't got that, and that he's then rather than just sitting down, all right, well, I'm screwed, I haven't got that, I'll just do my job here. He's still, like you say, obsessing over Andor and trying to catch him and whatever. But then he gets taken off by the ISB. And he said, look, the only thing I want in my life, basically, my passion is to catch this guy who you're after, and I already know a bunch of stuff about him. And they sort of go, well, we don't really want to hear from you. It felt a bit, why would they not be leaping on that? Now, maybe they're doing it as a way, well, I guess, we haven't seen it all yet, but maybe they're doing it as a way to get him even more engaged, sort of thing, and to really push for it. But it doesn't, I don't know. He seems like he's constantly on the verge of doing something and then doesn't.
Yeah. As a character, has he frustrated you more than anything?
It's just been completely non-interesting. He's there. That's it. It's the most exciting thing I can say about him. He hasn't grabbed me at all. And I don't know if it's. I saw today that the guy who plays him was in Fury, and I don't remember him being in that. So at all, having only seen Fury once a long time ago. I don't know if it's just if he's not the greatest person for the role, or if it's just a very beige role.
Yeah.
It just he never seems to. I really like the idea that he wasn't going to just. Oh, well, my boss said I shouldn't worry about this, so let's just keep the peace here. He's very passionate about the fact that two of his colleagues have been murdered, and nobody else seems to care about it.
Yeah.
And he won't let it go, and he gets himself in trouble, and he keeps on going. He gets himself in more trouble, and he keeps on going. But at some point, either they're going to have to, like Batman, he gets shot and killed, and that's that, or let him get back into the Empire and start being able to investigate and hound Andor or whatever, or do something else completely different with him, because at the minute he's just fading into the background.
Yeah. And whilst we had him being in this interrogation booth, Cassian, or Keith as he was calling himself, he's been taken to an Imperial prison planet, kind of locked up, and they kind of did it in a scene that kind of echoed Rogue One just a little bit, or at least I kind of felt like that's what they were trying to achieve. They kind of had the what would you call it? I guess the prison ship, and it just reminded me of Jin at the start of Rogue One.
Yeah.
His journey from there, he'd gone to the northeast of England, Blackpool kind of region, had a heavy night out, ended up in a police cell the following day. It's happened to a lot of people. It was kind of like a strange little arc, the whole arrest of him. It kind of played out kind of strange in the last episode, and he gets trapped in this kind of bleak Imperial kind of world, and I kind of wondered what your take on that was.
I like the. It was very clear then. I think they're doing one thing. I think they're doing a really good job with this is they're really making the Empire ruthless. Right, you attacked us. We're going to screw over everybody, even people we know had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
They just don't care. They can do whatever the hell they like because they're in charge. So I really like that aspect of, and he was literally at that point he was doing nothing. He was walking down the street and happened to sort of, some other guys ran past him and suddenly he's arrested and he's in prison for 6 years. So I like that sort of side of it. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that next. I really liked I saw a comment from a friend on Facebook this morning. Saw Andor yesterday. Now I need to find out where I buy those snowboard boots that all the guards are wearing. I like the idea of having a prison where basically if there's no bars on the doors. They've got food, they've got water, they've got a comfy bed to sleep in. But if you take a step outside your cell, you're dead.
Yeah.
There's no mucking around, and even the guy who walked out in the middle of the night, they just left him there. There's no let's everybody go back in and then we'll come in and clean up. They just leave him there to rot basically. So I'm really liking and being sort of more of an imperial than a rebel myself. I'm liking that they're sort of showing the screw you, we can do whatever we like attitude that the Empire is supposed to have.
Yeah. I'm going to try something here and see if I can get some of these images up on the screen. But it's not working. Typically not working. Right.
We're too beautiful to be covered up anyway.
Technology has let me down this evening, so we're going to go without the images, I think. So we then jump back from the introduction to the prison world, and we're back in the sort of interrogation chamber, for a better word, where Mira is interrogating Cyril, and she kind of learns from him that he didn't sign off the report that he had to. That he had to sign back on Ferrex. He didn't know what was put into the report by Lieutenant Blevin, and so she kind of gives him the opportunity to read it, and which causes him to be, what would we say, quite unhappy with what's in the report. It's not up to his standards. It's not the truth as he sees it, and a lot of things have been omitted.
Mildly miffed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and again, it's showing the sort of the side of him that I think is it's the one interesting bit that I think they should pick up on, that he won't let it lie. He's not willing to go, oh well, this guy who is infinitely more important than I am has said this, I should just back him up. And especially with the way the ISB have been set up in sort of the old EU books and things, and are now being built up in the new Star Wars as you don't mess with you don't mess with stormtroopers.
We've got them.
You get shot, but you really don't mess with the ISB, because they will just screw you over and you will disappear into a hole and never come back out of it. And he's willing, even though they're telling him to shut up, to just keep on opening his mouth and try and make it happen. But it's like I say, it's they kind of need to do something a bit more with him soon.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Miro, she's been an interesting character, more so for her facial expressions. I think more than necessarily the plot. She's got a great way of holding a scene, and between her and Cyril, they kind of played quite well off each other. And the scene kind of ended once again for Cyril, um, sitting in a room, um, uh, on his own, which I thought was kind of ironic because that's kind of been um, his kind. Here we go. That's kind of been his kind of thing the whole series.
Yeah.
And I kind of expected more from their encounter. I kind of expected it to get quite fiery, um, and it didn't go that direction. And I kind of thought there's so much potential between that two characters for it to be a little bit more than it was.
Yeah, so I thought that whenever they got those two together, that he was going to sort of become her assistant or sidekick or whatever you want to call it, and that would get him sort of because he wasn't in the Empire, he was in corporate security, which sort of your sort of special police or whatever you want to call it, that we have in the UK.
Yeah.
But he was sort of striving to get there, and then this was his chance to really prove himself and become a part of the Empire for real, and help her to get to Andor. But it felt a bit like she sort of went, well, I don't really care what you say. You've given me the information that you give me exactly what I needed, and that's it. I'm not going to use you for anything else. And it sort of just shoveled him off to the side again. It feels like it's sort of he's just a little puppy that everybody keeps kicking.
Yeah, yeah. And again, the show flipped back. We headed over to the prison planet that Andor's now at. Still going by the name of Keith. He's still undercover in effect. And we learn that the prison's called Narkina 5. Kind of like an ocean planet, and they've kind of got these kind of little sunken, I guess, imperial bases where they're holding them all prisoner. And whilst we're getting the introduction to Andor's life on Narkina 5, we also get an element of the backstory of what's going on behind the scenes in the Imperial Security Bureau are now directly looking for Andor based on Mira's work. They've connected the Starpath unit on Ferrex back to Cassian Andor. They're actively looking for him, but obviously with him going under a different name, maybe not going to be such a obvious kind of selection for them.
But you would kind of think, I mean, you see right there, they've got a picture of him, and he's not really, it's not like he's even, wearing a fake mustache and beard or anything. He looks exactly the way he looks. You would think, given the technology that's around in the Star Wars universe, that they would have some sort of, facial recognition type of thing, which would immediately go, hey, the guy you're looking for, we've caught, he's over there. And that they then have him sort of thing. So there are little small gaps just every now and again where it felt that it would have been better if they had this, but it was like he was wearing a hat, so there was a shadow over his face, so you couldn't really see him or whatever. I'd prefer that they hadn't just got a clear picture of him and then still can't find him.
Yeah. The other interesting aspect, I guess, is the fact that it's also revealed in this meeting that they're actively looking for a rebel that they codename Access, which we know to be Luthien. So sort of both are sort of central lead characters there on the rebellion side are now under specific watch of the ISB, so things are starting to hot up for them.
Yeah, and I mean, from being a guy who lives in Sweden now, I'm loving that Stellan Skarsgård is in it. I think he is brilliant in just about everything. The way that he's gone in the last couple of episodes, just where he's gone, he's sort of like the closest thing you can get to an Imperial rebel, I would say. He is just doing whatever he needs to do to win, and he doesn't mind that he's screwed over Andor, and oh well, we didn't everybody didn't make it out of the robbery and whatever. As long as he's got his money and he can keep pushing Mon Mothma to do her bit and getting his agenda going, he just doesn't see anything else to get. He even says like he's pushing the Empire to go too far to get a reaction.
Yeah.
And everybody else saying, yeah, but people are going to suffer. And his answer to that is, well, I don't care as long as it gets me what I want.
And I do love the way he kind of transitions between his very much rebel character and this betrayal of this tradesman that he kind of puts on. It's just, you literally see the progression in him of him putting on that character, and I kind of love that. And we'll get back to him, I think, later in the episode, because we get to see the real rebel of him at heart towards the end of the episode. But on the prison planet, things aren't going great for Cassian. He's not breakdancing. As the Kingdom of Weird said on YouTube for us, he's got to play the game of lava that we all played as kids. The floor is lava. And we learn this is basically the trick on this prison planet, that all the prisoners are going to be left barefoot. The rebels all have on big chunky rubber boots, and they've got the ability to basically zap the floor and to the point that they can kill them. And poor Cassian, it's not a good experience for him. They would have a nice close up of the big chunky boots, ski boots, I guess. In many respects, you'll maybe recognise them.
Yeah, somebody said apparently that they've already identified them as a particular make of snowboard boot.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah. So the immediate introduction on this prison planet, Cassian knows he's in for a tough time. We head back, and this is kind of the scene you kind of described earlier between Cyril and Mira, where he's being shown the report, and you kind of get these wonderful facial looks between the two characters, but it just doesn't get to like a real point of conflict or kind of level of excitement that you kind of feel that it should have. There should have been some kind of lashing out in anger. I would have liked to have seen him to grab the iPad or whatever it is and just throw it against the wall in rage or something. You just wanted something to break.
He looks like he's constantly on the verge of bursting into tears.
Yeah.
My mummy doesn't love me enough. But I don't know. Like I say, I'm hoping to do something more with him. I just the longer it goes on, the less I feel that they actually are going to do something to make him. I mean, I like to say to either in terms of Imperial terms, redeem himself and get back into the fold, or do something completely and utterly different with him.
Paul Naylor there is asking if Mira's played by our own Claire Henry. Is that because she's mean and cruel, Paul? You're going to have to explain yourself.
She doesn't have any chin in her hand, so it can't be Claire.
Cassian quickly learns about life on the prison planet. I've picked this one purely because on Ferrex they had a wall of gloves, and now on Narkina 5 they've got a wall of shoes. Something's going on here.
We'll have a wall of hats and a wall of trousers.
Yeah, we get a huge, impressive set for this prison room, where Cassian is introduced as the latest prisoner, and all the prisoners are at task building Imperial parts, and the prisoners were kind of made to look after themselves, and we meet a new character of Kino Loy, played by the very own Andy Serkis. Not a surprise introduction because we knew he was going to be in the series, but a strange kind of choice of character, I thought, for Andy Serkis.
Yeah, so now we know the origin of Snoke.
Yeah.
this is where he starts off his career, apparently. But yeah, I think
many zaps on the floor. Jakey was lying asleep on the floor and got a few zaps in the face.
Exactly. No, but I think he's I liked the way he portrayed his character here. I think he did it very well, and he was, I mean, he says, like the tables are competing with each other, and then each table gets the room score, and the rooms compete against other rooms who compete against other levels and so on. And he's trying to make sure that his guys that he's got in his room there get it as good as they can, sort of thing. And he's not willing to take any crap from anybody. So like that, but then there seemed to be like there's a perfect shot of it here. There was a lot of Cassian then standing watching them doing stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody was going, right, look, here's how you build this bit. Your part will be screwing in the screws that go in here. They just sort of shouted at him for a while and told him that it was his fault that they were behind, even though he'd never even been there before, and then completely ignored him and started building. So that was a bit strange. I've also been trying to work out what it is that they're actually building here. And I thought, first of all, it was like part of the side panel for a TIE fighter. And then I thought it was the underside of an AT-AT suit.
I'm kind of going to go back a few frames because that maybe it's kind of like a weird kind of star shape kind of thing if you look at the sort of middle right there.
Yeah. Now, if you look at the sort of the side of a TIE, actually, I have one right here. No, I can't reach it. Anyway, if you look on the side of a TIE fighter's wing, it's got sort of that shape in the middle of it. Yeah. But I don't think that actually is what it is.
You kind of see that shape just in the background over the Cassian shoulder there.
And I mean, probably in the end, you'll find it's absolutely nothing of interest that they ever mention what it is. It's just that they needed them to build a thing.
Yeah. So we had kind of Cassian learning his life is going to be quite stark in this prison, and on the opposite side of things, we're brought back to the opulence of Mon Mothma's apartment in Coruscant, where she's having yet another party central. So if Paul, you're going to call anyone Claire Henry, maybe Mon Mothma's the more appropriate one.
Mon Henry.
And she's still on this kind of political game. She doesn't have a great relationship with her husband. It's quite clear. We kind of learned that they were kind of like a marriage, an arranged marriage when she was 15, which apparently is the way of life on Chandrila. And so she's still playing this political game where she's trying to get her inheritance money basically from Chandrila released through her banking friend. So she can put that money into the rebellion. Her husband doesn't know anything about it, and all the characters have this kind of weird kind of, we want to criticize Palpatine and the governance of the galaxy, but we don't want to go too far, and they're all kind of pushing it a little bit, but not too much.
And I mean, in some ways, you can understand why, because the Empire have started clamping down, and the slightest bit of dissent and you suddenly just disappear overnight, kind of thing. But then there was they're talking quite openly and quite critically about things with sort of like Imperial standing 3 feet away from them and nobody reacts. And she says she's being watched all the time. Well, then there's probably like 10 guys in that party who have been paid to be there by the Empire and stuff. But nobody seems to hear what she's actually saying, which is good, because otherwise, the rebellion will never happen then. And there's some of the bits that I find quite hard about this is that we've got to get from here to here, and how are they going to get there, sort of thing. What's going to happen to Mon Mothma that she ends up having to completely split from the Empire and go into hiding or whatever. But I like the idea that she's sort of, she wants to talk to the guy, the banker guy. She's sort of, I know something. Do you know something? Well, I might know something, but I can't tell you because maybe you don't know a thing, and maybe my thing is more important than your thing. They're also like talking in code almost. I'm assuming, or I'm guessing that at some point they're going to have to sort of, they're going to have to like have a coming out party for the two of them to each other. Like, oh, by the way, we're actually both working in the same direction here, and maybe we should team up and sort this out. But it's it's like everything else. They're taking their sweet time getting there.
Yeah. Something that surprised me about the episode was we headed back to Ferrex, and I kind of thought we were that kind of. It kind of felt done. Ferrex kind of felt done, but with the way that Cassian left there, it felt like everything was kind of at a conclusion there. But we've gone back and we met Bix once more with the droid and Cassian's mother. She's kind of being the kind, considerate friend and looking after her. And throughout the whole time, everything that's going on, our good friends from the rebellion, from the Highlands, are kind of watching everything that's going on, and analysing what's going on in Ferrex. They're trying to track down Cassian. They're watching Bix. They're watching Brasso and Marva, and from, I guess, a little coffee shop, and we get a little bit more of the relationship between Vel and Cinta, and Cinta's really keen to stay watching what's happening on the planet on Ferrex. Vel not so keen; she's keen to move on and kind of bring this whole situation to a head.
Yeah, I think I have the same problem with these guys as well that I had with Cyril. They're kind of they're just they don't seem to be really going anywhere. And every time you think they're about to, they're sitting there. You're like, look, do you say watching people across the street? Okay, something's going to happen here. Oh no, it won't. And something's going to. Oh no, it didn't. It felt for me as watching like one to what are we on now, 7, so it must have been up to 5 and up to 5 when they were like, this is it, right? When they were planning the robbery, it was lots of getting all the pieces in place. Now we've introduced all these 500 million different people, and they tend to go, there's Dave, there's Jim, there's Bobby, and then they never mention him by name again, sort of thing. And I find it really hard then. For me, it's hard to remember who's who, because I don't connect the name to them at all. And then whenever they're referred to them, I'm like, well, who? But they got them all in place. They had the robbery episode basically, and I really enjoyed it. I thought they did that one very, very well. And now it feels like, okay, we've had our big set piece. Now we've got to get them all in place again for the next one. So they've got Bix has been arrested, and God knows where she's going to end up. Andor's mother is she seems to be rapidly fading, and you want her to go out with a bit of a bang. And then you've got the rest of the gang who are now turning up, and where are they going to end up? But it feels like we're going to have sort of 3 or 4 episodes maybe now of putting pieces in place, and then boom, something happens, and that'll be the end.
It kind of does. I kind of agree. It feels like there's too big of a cast, and we kind of felt it again when Cassian arrived in the Pleasant Planet, and everybody at the table named themselves to Cassian, and you're kind of left thinking, well, who out of you is of any importance? And you've kind of been felt like this all the sort of journey along, and because so many of the stories are quite slow burn stories, it's like, do I really want to care about that character or not? And it kind of feels like the creative, they're trying to make everybody feel important and feel fully developed.
Yeah.
But in the same hand, you also need characters just to get you from A to B and disappear. And we seem to have this inability to drop characters a little bit.
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of circling back, like you say, to be back together for another story after all being dispersed in episode 6. It's a little bit.
Yeah, you need the people who sort of go, we're looking for a thing. I saw him over there, and that's all they ever do, sort of thing. Everybody doesn't even matter. This is one of the things I do really love about Star Wars, is that all the characters in it have a backstory, and if you read the old Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina and Tales from Jabba's Palace and stuff, it's explaining why we're figuring down in the modal nodes playing in the cantina that day. And I love all that stuff. But everybody doesn't have to have that, and especially not when it's new people coming in. I can find out their story in 5 years' time when we write a book about day 27 in prison with Cassian sort of thing. You don't need to have a full backstory for everybody and holding up their family tree and whatever else. You can just sort of go, all right, and then on to the next thing.
Yeah. Talking of that, another character that's back, Salman Pack. Bix went to meet him. He's kind of the linchpin between her and being able to call Luthien. So she goes to him and gets permission to go and use the transmitter. All very reminiscent of episode 2. So she's back up the sort of chimney, I guess it is, for a better term, in Pack's sort of trading yard. And she's dialing up Luthien, and she gets Clea on the other side, and Luthien's there as well. Not too enamoured to hear from her, I don't think. This is the loose elements of the plan from Ardani kind of starting to fall apart a little bit here.
Yeah, and especially when not long before this, the ISB people were talking about they want like sort of full planet surveillance and all that. So I was thinking, oh well, this is how they're going to hone in on him. They're going to get him, and it's just, I feel like I'm a bit of a broken record. Since again, nothing really happened with it. So they've just set up all the surveillance, but the one person who is actually transmitting direct to the rebellion. Oh, we missed that call. We were out having lunch. It's a bit weird that, and if they sort of go, oh well, we didn't have time to set that up yet. I mean, it's the Empire. They get money coming out their ears and they get billions of soldiers, so just get on with it. But I do like the oh well, I've used you for what I needed you for. I'm not interested in you anymore. All I want to do is get a reaction out of the Empire so that everybody will see how horrible they really are. And there's a lot more grey areas in this series than there have been in other things. I mean, even in Mandalorian, it was still pretty much, Mandalorian is the good guy and everybody else is the bad guy. Whereas here it's like, well, even the good guy isn't really that good of a guy.
Yeah. And just to complicate things further, we kind of had a quick scene back at the prison planet, really to emphasise that Andy Serkis' Kino Loy character is the one in charge. How depressing the planet is, that one of the characters willingly kills himself by stepping out on the floor during the middle of the night. And we kind of got a scene as well which emphasised the fact that they've all had the number of days in prison doubled, and this was punishment for the actions on Aldhani, which obviously Cassian doesn't tell them was him. And the prisoners kind of want to know what people are saying about that in the outside world. They're expecting there to be outrage and uprisings and so on, and Cassian's like, yeah, I didn't know anything about it, which was interesting.
Yeah, and it felt a bit strange that they seem to know everything that's happening. I mean, have they got sort of like, Sky TV in their cells or something that they're all watching the news? I was kind of, because, I mean, the Empire could just as easily go, you're all getting your sentences doubled or tripled or whatever it was. We're not even going to tell you why because we just don't care about you. It feels a bit, because if they're telling them, I mean, because obviously these guys aren't going to be the biggest fans of the Empire anymore, even if they were to start off with. So if they tell them there is rebellious things going on, then maybe they can take that as a bit of a, as a sort of a way to keep their spirits up kind of thing. Whereas if you just get oh, by the way, you thought you were getting out tomorrow? Well, you're not. Yeah. And you don't understand why. And then that they assume that everybody else will know exactly what's happening as well, was a little bit weird, I thought.
Yeah. We also got the emphasis of the crackdown by the Imperials around the galaxy, again because of the Aldhani heist. Everything's happening because of that. And pretty much the assumption is that the Imperials have heard the transmission that Bix has made, and they've cracked down. They've arrested Pac, and now they're after her. She goes on the run, and but gets caught. Um, and she faces interrogation herself. Um, Meanwhile, we get an old friend from Rogue One. Two Tubes is
I was
back.
really happy to see him back again.
Yeah, played again by Aidan Cook once more, and we got Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera, and this is kind of what I mentioned earlier in the show. We got a great exchange between Saw Gerrera and Luthien, both playing each other for information, feeling each other out, and great acting from Forrest Whitaker and Stalin, Stalingard as well, which I really enjoyed this scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think it played very well on the character of Saw, who is clearly unhinged. And it like in Rogue One, everybody was out to get him, and everybody was trying to catch him and betray him, and he was just completely paranoid. And he's exactly the same here. All the other ones are crap. I'm the only one who's any good. Why would I even go and meet this guy who you want me to meet me to, or want me to meet, because he's not in my league even, and I won't risk myself for these losers. So I like that they've kept on pushing him, making him quite edgy, and that Luthien's trying to, he's trying to get him to do things that he doesn't really want to do, because that suits his plan, rather than, there's not it seems to be that there's lots of little splinters of rebellion, and people aren't really able to get them to join together, and it doesn't feel like Luthien's going the right way to do it either, really.
Yeah, and as I say, Stellan Skarsgård, Forrest Whitaker doing a great scene, and this is kind of what I expected more of from the series. I kind of expected to see a lot more of the different factions of the rebellion. Luthien's got his own way of doing things. Mon Mothma's got her way. Saw Gerrera's got his way. I was kind of expecting more of that, so I was kind of expecting more of these kind of scenes. And I think if you're going to have slow burns and slow developments, you really need punchy scenes like this that allow quite strong development of characters.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they didn't start going into explanations of who Saw Gerrera is or anything. They just, I'm off to see this guy, and if you haven't seen Rogue One or what do you call it, Clone Wars or whatever, you'll just have to catch up later. They didn't do the sort of the Marvel, okay, let's have the whole of the first film just introducing this guy and explaining who he is. They just jumped left straight into his story that the rest of us already know. I really like the way they've developed him, isn't the right word. They've regressed him back to not being missing arms and robot legs and whatever else he had in Rogue One. He's back to being more of a person, but you can see the sort of the lineage of the costume, like being a costume freak. I really like that. It was you can sort of see some of the bits from his costume that he had in Rogue One, and where it could have come from the animated series, and then the fact that he is just a bloody brilliant actor doesn't hurt any.
Yeah, and always great when you get two quality actors just trading off each other.
Yeah, indeed.
The episode kind of wrapped up with Salman Pac being tortured by Mira, who's now on Ferex, and Bix is taken in to be interrogated yet next. So the bricks of the whole rebellion here starting to collapse a little bit. She's obviously probably going to point them in the direction of Luthien stroke Access, as the Imperials know him. Probably going to link them back to Cassian again. They're going to try and probably connect him to the prison planet. Things are going to start falling apart. It kind of feels as we head towards the sort of final 3 episodes of this series.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to second view yet, but one of the things that to at least it sounded to me in the ground, like they had an interrogator droid there. You know, the bloody ball from before. And I was really hoping that was just sort of going to come in from the side, not like right in your face, or just you just sort of see it coming in.
I kind of expected that, but they had Dr. Gorst, which I guess he's supposed to be the interrogator, I guess. But yeah, I kind of thought there should have been that sound of from off screen of the torture droid coming.
But it's one of the things that I kind of liked about this one as well, because like in Mandalorian, you were constantly bombarded with fan service things. You know, that the barbecued cocaine monkey lizards, and there was all sorts of hints back to before. Whereas in this one, there's like whenever there were the shot you showed of the outside of Saul's base, there was an X-wing there.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been a lot of that. It's happening in the Star Wars world, but they don't have a Jedi walking by and there you go. They don't have any sort of Jedi walking by in the background or much of that kind of thing. It's more we're in the same place, but you don't need to constantly remind us. We know it's Star Wars. It says right at the beginning of the show every week.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of enjoyed this episode because it was nearing towards more what I kind of expected with the factions of the rebellion, a little bit more in the political side of things. But I think it was one of these episodes that I know a lot of people maybe consider a filler episode because it was about getting the pieces back in play and kind of where they want them and line things up. So I think there's a lot of pressure on them to deliver in these last 3 episodes. And I think there needs to be some quite hard-hitting action that we kind of typically expect from Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, I really liked all the sort of the political infighting within the Empire as well. I'm trying to do this, and you're trying to keep your peace safe, and they're dropping each other in it left, right, and center. And I really like that aspect of it. But it does feel like there needs to be a big finish, and it needs to start kicking off soon. I mean, admittedly, it's not like it's not one step from here to Rogue One, so it's not there's plenty of like timeline time to go, but there's not plenty of series time, and there's a risk of it just fizzling out a bit, and if it does, then I think they'll lose a lot of viewers.
Yeah. Because
people are always willing to be willing to give it a chance for a series and hope that it ends well, but then I think if it doesn't, like I'm assuming they're going to do a second series of Book of Boba Fett, and it'll kind of be, I might watch it, but there's a serious risk that I won't bother.
Yeah. I think that's us chewed the fat as much as we can on episode 8 of Andor. Neil's not a fan of Andor, but he does make an interesting point. Tales of the Jedi, the animation series, was released this week as well. More storytelling, more emotion, more stunning visuals, in Neil's opinion. Briefly, did you get a chance to check that out, or is that on your viewing list?
I'm about halfway through the first episode, I've seen only like 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So I can't give you an opinion on it yet. Give me till tomorrow night, and I'll have more opinions.
Excellent. I'm going to be back Sunday night with Mark Newbold and Matt Booker for a Halloween stroke 5th anniversary birthday celebration show for Fantha Tracks, which could be interesting. There's 10 minutes to 10 p.m. in the UK here. The Hasbro Pulse live stream starts at the top of the hour. So being very British, time to get a cup of tea on before the Hasbro live stream starts in 10 minutes time. Andrew, thank you very much for joining me.
No worries, man.
To go over Andor. It's been great fun going over the episode with you. And thank you everyone for your thoughts in the comments as well. Always good to hear everyone's thoughts in the show. And we'll be back next Thursday night for our review of episode 9. So thank you very much everybody, and good night.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Fantha Tracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow Fantha Tracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.